The Conservative leadership race reaches its conclusion today. By midday, we will know who our next Prime Minister will be. But they're going to have to hit the ground running. To talk about the job that lies ahead, I'm joined by Eleanor of Novara Media and Tom Harwood of Guido Fawkes to give us a sense of views from across the political spectrum. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Tell you what caught my eye this morning in the Times. Their cartoon today pictures the door of number 10. The doormat is the finish line, and as the door to number 10 opens, there is a flaming poison chalice. Eleanor, we expect it to be Boris Johnson to pick up that poison chalice. Your views on the road ahead for him?
Well, he's trying to persuade us with sheer Boris bluster and bluff that he will be the one to do what has seemed impossible for a long time now and deliver a kind of Brexit that will unify the country, unify the Conservative Party. But unfortunately, we live in the real world, and he has shown absolutely no movement on the key issues that the EU wants to see if they're going to be brought back to the negotiating table, such as the customs union, such as membership of the single market, which he has previously said might be on the table back in 2016. But then he's tacked to the hard right in order to advance his own political career. Plus, of course, he needs to make sure that the DUP are happy, and often those kinds of, the DUP is at odds with the kind of things that would unify the Conservative Party. So he's got a really difficult job ahead of him. OK, well, Eleanor, we are, it seems, about to live in a Boris Johnson world, Tom. That announcement expected at 11:45 today. And he has got quite a tough task ahead of him, not just, of course, because he's picking up the Brexit challenge and all the problems that face, but also he's got to unite his party. And there's this quote from Nigel Evans from last night that says Boris will be going in there with at least half a dozen knives already in his back. We've seen resignations already at the prospect of a Boris Johnson government, and we hear there could be more to come today.
He's got a lot fewer knives in his back than Theresa May ever did. And so it's going to be easier in that sense to unite a party, given that he's doing this task that the majority of the party believe in, the majority of MPs believe in, and he'll have that membership from them, he'll have that mandate from the membership that Theresa May never had. Having someone like Boris in number 10, having that attitude, that greater communication skill, that optimism, that boundless optimism that will be giving everyone a bit of a sunny disposition, that will be a really valuable tool, and it will be a stark contrast to the sort of dour politics we've had under Theresa May.
That's interesting, isn't it? Optimism, belief, and the backing of 160,000 Conservative Party members. Is that going to be enough for people, Eleanor? I'm looking at Alan Duncan, who, of course, resigned over this and tried to get that motion for a vote of confidence in the next Prime Minister in the Commons. It was dismissed by the Speaker. But that is the starting platform from our next Prime Minister. I mean, even if he has the confidence of 160,000 people in the membership of the Conservative Party, that still only represents a tiny minority of this country overall. It's something like 0.2% of the general population. And I think the other 99.8% of people deserve a say on what the future of this country is going to look like. Because we can't just be talking about Brexit here. We really need to take a step back and look at the crisis. And the bluster on Brexit is just not going to be enough for the vast majority of people were he to take that platform to a general election. And I think he knows it.
Boris Johnson's someone with a record, though. As Mayor of London, he cut crime. He cut the murder rate by 50%. He cut the crime rate by 16%. He cut taxes for ordinary working people. He has a record of delivery in the sense that no Labour politician does.
It's quite interesting, though, isn't it, that everyone that comes to talk about Boris Johnson and be his supporter always harks back to his time as London Mayor, where he made mistakes as well. He overspent on a lot of things. There are a lot of vanity projects, people call it. And also, you know, he made a lot of mistakes as Foreign Secretary. Nobody seems to be talking about his time in Cabinet when they're talking about his great record. And I think for many people that might be the problem, Tom.
As Foreign Secretary, he didn't spend an awful lot of time in that job. He resigned because of the course that Theresa May was taking us down with a Brexit that didn't deliver on the promises of the referendum campaign. But as Foreign Secretary, he did some quite remarkable things in terms of getting other countries around the world to expel Russian spies and diplomats after the Skripal poisoning. He also championed the education of young women and girls across the world. He did some really remarkable things to be very proud of in that role. But of course, he wasn't in there for as long as he was Mayor of London. 8 years where he defeated the London Labour left twice over. He was over 16 points behind in the polls in 2012 and came back over the course of that election campaign to win again. He's a winner.
Tom's saying that bluster is backed up with a record.
Well, let's be very clear here. He resigned last year as Foreign Secretary to distance himself from a mess of his own making. He realised that it was impossible to deliver the kind of soft Brexit that he initially supported with the kind of mandate that Theresa May had. And if you ask a lot of ambassadors about his time as Foreign Secretary, they've said that he caused them to be embarrassed of their own country for the first time. And if the top scientist, the former chief scientist of this country, has said that his actions caused severe damage to our ability to be a leader in solving climate change, which to my eyes and in the opinion of many people is one of the most pressing crises that the world is facing. And that is a condemnation of his record.
Well, yesterday you had a minister from the Foreign Office, Alan Duncan, resigning over his potential announcement as Conservative Party leader and next Prime Minister today. Let's listen to what Alan Duncan had to say yesterday.
The difficulties have increased, not decreased, as a result of having a leadership contest. So I think he will be living on a knife edge.
Tom, on a knife edge, and I was talking to a former government trade negotiator here earlier who said, look, trade negotiation is very tricky. Any dealing with the EU or other countries is difficult. It comes down to politeness, civility and the right language. And, you know, many of Boris Johnson's critics will say he hasn't got any of that at the moment.
He's got strength. And delays don't make deals, deadlines do. And so having that very clear deadline, having that credible threat of no deal, which the EU doesn't want, it's running a mile from, having that credible stance of having things to offer in this negotiation, saying if we don't follow this path, then it's going to be bad for both sides. That's something credible that Theresa May could never offer and never wanted to offer. So saying that we're willing, we're happy, we're able to go for no deal is something that will massively change the dynamic in this relationship and add great weight to our position.
OK, Tom Harwood and Eleanor Penny, that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for your company this morning. As you can hear, another voice. We've got all voices here on Sky News Sunrise this morning as we build up to that big announcement. Who will be the next Conservative Party leader and who will be our next Prime Minister? Things heating up here in Westminster ahead of that announcement, figuratively and literally, because temperatures are going to soar today. Here's Kirsty.